What's actually healthy despite most people thinking it's not? Story 1. Put baby on the floor. Babies don't always need to be in a bouncer, swing, jumper, walker, rocker, chair, etc. They do great on the floor in a safe space. Answer. My 3-month-old actively demands being on the floor. He will squirm and moan until he's placed on his yoga mat and can start doing his workout. He started with moving only his left leg, then the right one, and then the arms. By now he's training his core muscles, trying to sit up and turn from one side to another. It's like a built-in training program he knows he has to follow, and he gets really stressed out if he can't get his exercise in. Story 2. It is really healthy to process some emotions and thoughts on your own. I know I'm on Reddit saying that, so that's likely an unpopular opinion. But the people who have the most peace and clarity are people who can sort, experience, sit in, and evaluate their feelings without having to put it out to other people for other people to tell them what to think, feel, and do. Answer. This is really true. I spent a long time thinking the usual, herder, therapy is for pussies. But one day I was severely burned out, and I finally decided that I should at least try it. After 4 or 5 sessions where my therapist helped me work out my burnout, she said at the next session, you have the tools you need to work out these things, so I don't believe that you need to do therapy. If you are able to stop, look inward and think about why you feel something or how your emotions work, and you can rationalize yourself into a better mindset, you have a great tool to be mentally healthy. Story 3. Frozen vegetables. It's seen as cheap and not as good as fresh, when in fact it's almost always healthier than fresh vegetables. Answer. This is something that has changed over time. Frozen vegetables used to be worse than fresh vegetables because they were slowly frozen, which degraded them. But these days, the vegetables are snap frozen, which preserves them in a much better state. Personally, most of the vegetables that I eat these days are frozen. It is just so much more convenient to have a freezer full of frozen vegetables that I know will last for months over having to constantly buy fresh vegetables and being forced to use them before they go bad, even if they don't go with what I plan to cook. Story 4. Sleeping all day when you're exhausted. As my trainer says, if you're actually falling asleep, you clearly needed it. Story 5. Being around dirt, especially for kids. Exposure to a natural, somewhat dirty environment helps your immune system develop properly, which in turn helps reduce the chance of developing allergies or immune system diseases, and even reduces some mental health issues. Citation. Story 6. Being angry. It's as valid an emotion as any, and sometimes you just need to be angry and let it out. Reacting in anger is never a good thing, though. Answer. Being angry over things like injustices is good. Unfortunately, anger is one of those things that many people take way too far. Many people, often men, find the anger is the only emotion that they are able to express, and so they embrace and express it way too often. Being angry about child hunger, good. Being angry about a mean thing your friend did, healthy. Being angry about having to press an extra button for English at the ATM, not so healthy. Being so angry about little things that you spend your life ranting and grumping multiple times a day, unhealthy. Story 7. Popcorn. Without all the artificial butter flavorings and low-quality oils, of course. Popcorn is a whole grain and super high in fiber. As far as snacks go, it's about as good as it gets. Answer. This is a good one. In addition to the fiber, if you get popcorn that isn't soaked in butter, it's also very high volume for the amount of calories. If you measure out something like Smart Pop popcorn compared with regular chips, you can eat way more of the popcorn for the same calories. Edit. Some people are trying to argue about the butter and claiming it's healthy and that we shouldn't avoid fats. I'm not here to debate whether or not butter is healthy, and I 100% agree with not avoiding fats because we need them to survive. However, 95% of people are getting enough fats from their diets, and more is not better. Fats are very calorically dense, and in the context of a snack being eating in addition to meals, more just becomes excess calories, more likely to put you in a caloric surplus, which will make you fat in any form. If you want to snack on something that's going to put you at less risk of a caloric surplus, lower fat popcorn is a way to do that because of the volume and time it will take you to eat the same calories as chips or popcorn that does have a lot of butter added. However, if you can afford the extra calories, go ahead and add the butter. Obesity statistics suggest that this isn't the case for most people, though. Story 8. Having fat in your body, not an excessive amount, though, but you don't need to be ripped with a completely flat stomach to be healthy. Story 9. Saying no to children and letting them feel sadness sometimes so they can appreciate joy eventually. My mother-in-law grandchildren are so spoiled that nothing can make them happy. They are completely self-absorbed and never say a thank you. They can get absolutely anything they want anytime. I've never seen children like that, and I believe while she has good intentions, this might be harmful later. Story 10. Salt. It's been demonized by the health industry for years, but it is wildly necessary for darn near everything in your body. Story 11. I think the takeaway here is everything in moderation, and that is just annoying to hear as an adult as it was in PE when they hammered it into my head. Story 12. Silence. Just silence. Take it in. Relax. Give your ears a well-deserved rest. But fudge you if you suffer from tinnitus. No rest for you. Story 13. Giving your body a chance to fight off minor illnesses before turning immediately to antibiotics virals. Like no, don't let that dog bite fester your arm right off your shoulder. But if you can walk through the sinus infection with a bottle of NyQuil, do that. Story 14. To a certain degree, fat. There was a misunderstanding that if there's fat in your food and drink, then it will go straight to your waist if you eat it. Not true. This gave birth to all these low-fat foods where they took the fat out and replaced it with sugar, which the body will just convert to fat. So they replace the sugar with sugar substitute, which again just primes your body to absorb any real sugars you do eat and turn them to fat. Yeah, it's true there are good and bad fats, but you're generally better off eating the food with fats than any of the low-fat alternatives. Story 15. Have sympathy for others. Just because someone needs the help and extra leg up doesn't mean you are being taken advantage of. Story 16. Full-fat Greek-style yogurt, better nutrition. It will leave you feeling replete. If you have it for breakfast with a few berries, you won't fancy a biscuit for 11s. Story 17. Emotions. Not that people don't find them healthy, I guess, but they don't normalize and acknowledge emotions, and it can lead to being more unhealthy than talking to expressing emotions. Story 18. Bread, but not bread made in factories and using grains that have been ultra-processed. We need to return to the old school, time-consuming way of producing bread. Story 19. GMOs. We've been genetically modifying crops and animals slowly over years by selective breeding to omit unfavorable traits and promote favorable ones. Story 20. A well-balanced burger. Fats, protein, carbs, some vitamins and fiber from salad bits, especially at home, so you can control the amount of oil, etc. The issue is more than people have the burger, and then 1,000 kilocalories in fries, a 600 kilocalorie milkshake, and some garlic sticks as well. Story 21. Giving me money. I don't think people realize how much better they'll feel about themselves once they try it. Story 22. Cutting off your entire family if they aren't good people. I never knew my life could be so stable and drama-free, and it's going on almost 5 years now. Story 23. It depends. Broadly claiming something healthy lacks the nuance that things do not exist in a vacuum. The dose matters, and the some things are beneficial in some contexts. Age groups, disease-free status, diets, and not others. Comparison group also matters. Like an oil might have positive properties, but give off carcinogenic compounds if used at extremely high heats. IDK, I'm overthinking it. Answer. I don't think you're overthinking it. It's the right mindset to have towards basically everything. The top comment, ATM from You the Original Retro, quotes, playing outside and touching dirt for kids, which is spot on, and backed up by science. At the same time, we're seeing people take this concept to the extreme by not vaxxing their kids, making them drink raw milk, and so on. Nuance is everything, which is kinda ironic as a statement. Story 24. Eating lots of eggs. I was helping my mom develop a post-heart bypass diet a couple of years back, and I was amazed at how dietary advice on eggs had changed. As I recall, the USDA recommendation, which had suggested very limited egg consumption, was entirely dropped in lieu of a consumption cap on saturated fat, which technically would allow a dozen eggs per day. Similarly, the AHA had relaxed its recommendation to up to an egg per day, while recognizing that that was a conservative reading of the most recent meta-analysis of dietary cholesterol consumption studies, which IIRC showed no correlation between dietary and blood cholesterol for up to 1 egg per day, weak correlation for 1 to 2 eggs per day, and no correlation above 2 eggs per day. So she enjoys consumption of eggs, but alas doesn't get bacon with them. Story 25. Soy. People seized on one case study and parlayed that the word soy, a cultural political commentary. Story 26. Despite rhetoric, there's numerous studies that show culling out toxic persons, including blocking toxic or argumentative people online, is incredibly healthy. The narrative that you're creating a personal echo chamber usually implies the accuser was foiled in trying to indoctrinate and/or gaslight you. If someone ever says this to you when you're kicking them out of your life, it is the most clear indicator they were trying to manipulate you. Plenty of studies on this one. Story 27. Atheism. Not saying that spirituality or religion are bad on their own, and I have no problem with people that are pious, but a lot of religious people and institutions act as though not having a religion somehow will ruin every aspect of your life, make you miserable, make you an immoral, law-breaking person, make you a horrible jerk, and so on. But almost every atheist person I've met feels more free, feels less restricted and afraid, is part of a community that is more loving and judges them less, and so on. Story 28. Self-care. Holy shoot, the neo-puritanical pseudo-scientific bunk the last few years outright shaming people for even an iota of intimacy exploration or release like an 1800s man finding a woman's exposed ankle scandalous is disgraceful. There is no shame in this if it's in the privacy of your home and you are unwinding after a long day, as long as your job and livelihood aren't impacted and you aren't breaking public decency laws. Go for it. Shoot like nofap and other stuff like it isn't just damaging, it's regressive as shoot and turns you into a puritanical weirdo. Story 29. Ignoring your phone for 2 days straight and not responding to anyone or scrolling through crap on social feeds. Story 30. Chocolate, the right kind. Dark chocolate with 80 or more cocoa has massive amounts of extremely healthy stuff in it. It makes your body release stem cells in the blood which repair about almost everything. Story 31. MSG. It was a literal smear campaign motivated by racism. Got so ingrained that tons of people think they are bad and have no idea why. Story 32. Hamburgers. At least when they're homemade. Coffee, in moderation. Staying up late and getting up late if you're a night owl. Plotting revenge but not going through with it. Taking your glasses off when you don't need them. Lying in bed a lot, at least compared to sitting a lot. Story 33. Beer in the medieval times. They were only lightly alcoholic, and the brewing process would help eliminate a lot of bacteria, which is pretty good when you're otherwise drinking well water that mixes with shoot water. Story 34. This should be renamed to What do you think is healthy? Because most of the people in here have no idea what they're talking about. Story 35. In this thread, people trying to justify foods as healthy and unhealthy. There's no such thing. Eat in moderation. That's it. In the words of Michael Pollan, eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Story 36. Sleeping in a separate bed from your significant other if they're a restless sleeper snorer, and it keeps you up. It's not worth losing rest over. Story 37. Diet soda instead of full sugar soda. Almost all of the studies I've read about any correlation between artificial sweeteners, specifically the ones in diet sodas, is pretty dubious. Obviously, water is better, but the idea that a Coca-Cola is healthier than a Diet Coke is plainly incorrect. Story 38. Not showering every day. You can wash sensitive spots every day, though, if you want to. That's understandable. Answer. As a kid in elementary school, I had some kind of very dry skin, and a dermatologist actually prescribed me to not shower or bathe for a month. I thought, that's insane, but I was a prepubescent kid, and I didn't stink. My skin healed perfectly, and no one ever noticed anything. Now, post-puberty obviously is something different, but I absolutely agree that daily showers are not a thing that most people require for health or hygiene. Story 39. Good complex carbs are beneficial. Obviously, moderation is key with anything, but no need to cut carbs from your diet. Story 40. Potatoes and rice, wheat, and bread. Carbs have been demonized, and everyone in all the self-appointed YouTube doctors will tell you to go low-carb, keto, etc. They assume everyone is non-vegetarian and recommend tons of meat, aren't aware of other cuisines, or the existence of lentils beans. Meanwhile, everyone else in the world outside NA happily eats carbs and is healthier. Story 41. Defiance in children. It shows they are capable of creating individual thoughts and ideas, to a certain degree, of course. Story 42. Getting some sun. While it leads to higher incidences of skin cancer, it actually leads to a lowered overall morbidity, dying of any reason. On the whole, it's good for you. Skin cancer is the usually easy-to-fix cancer. Story 43. Zero-calorie beverages. Contain less aspartame than a tomato, taste good, no calories. Sure, don't drink a 12-pack in a day, but one a day is not going to hurt you. They may prime your stomach for sweet foods, though, but if you're aware, you can mentally tackle that. Story 44. Walking 30 to 60 minutes a day. Most people forget the benefits of walking. Some people who want to start doing exercise are preparing for jogging or going to gym instead of walking. Story 45. Eating dandelions. I guess people don't think they are unhealthy, but rather that people don't realize they are healthy, and some were even imported as food crops. Story 46. Tofu. I don't know where that fear of soy came from, but it's totally healthy. All the animals are fed soy or a blend of soy and corn. Humans are totally fine eating tofu. I will admit, I get the organic tofu because I did read that the non-organic is ridiculous high amount of pesticides. That may or may not be true. I figure it's the same darn price at Costco. I might as well get the pesticide-free one. Story 47. Sunshine. We all need some amount of sunshine. We don't want to burn our skin or eyes, but we do need to have sunshine to stay healthy. Story 48. MSG. People hear it and assume that because it's a 3-letter initialism, it's unnatural and bad for you. It's not. I mean, it's not health boosting, but it's not any more dangerous for you than table salt, and it's natural. Story 49. Squats. Many people think doing squats, or other leg exercises really, are bad for knees, or shouldn't be done if your knees hurt. Actually, they're excellent for strengthening the knee and improving knee pain. This is not true for those with actual injuries. Story 50. Crying. A lot of people think it's a sign of weakness, but it's actually a healthy emotional release and a good way to process stress or grief. Story 51. Potatoes. They're surprisingly low calorie, zero fat, and contain lots of fiber, vitamin C, and potassium. Plus, in studies, they've been shown to be one of the most satiating foods. Story 52. Self-care. I promise you won't go to hell or your fingers will fall off. Just have fun with yourself. Story 53. Sugars, particularly sugars in fruit. Your brain literally needs sugars to function, but lately they've been demonized. Story 54. Eating fat. Even setting aside the whole healthy versus unhealthy fats thing, fat is a critical nutrient. Even if you're trying to lose weight, foods containing moderate amounts of fat are a great way to lower your calorie intake if you struggle with hunger appetite. Story 55. Resting every day. As a teenager, maybe this gets me labeled as lazy, but the only reason we are taught to be on a 24-hour grind and never rest is to benefit large companies with our labor. This even applies to school and working at home. I've been so prone to burnout just from my daily routine, and allowing myself to take breaks is the best thing I have ever done for my health. Story 56. Seed oils. American Cattle Ranchers Association propaganda has people thinking saturated fats are healthier these days. Story 57. Seeking help for mental health. Most people think it's a last resort, and you only go to therapy when things are really bad. And that idea is really damaging. I have a friend with mental health issues, and the only time he's gone to therapy is when he's on the brink of unaliving. Even just reaching out to a friend or relative when you're a little down or anxious is enough to start the process of coping healthily. Story 58. Body fat. Today's beauty standards shame any visible fat, and yet it's proven to have positive effects on the body and immune system in modest quantities. A healthy body is more nuanced than just fat bad. Story 59. Choking the chicken. Beating off. Slapping salami. Hand-washing the thawed meat. Discharging phallic mucus. Story 60. Sitting in silence. Like I personally do it so often, it really helps with clarity and vision for me. Story 61. This thread should be renamed. I think Instagram red-pilled me on something they don't want you to know about. Story 62. Fruit. There are people out there, I work retail cashier I know, that think fruit have too much sugar. I had a woman full-on believe this sentence. She said, "I'm being bad and getting a banana. It's my sugary treat." Be so real, RN. OMFG. Sugar isn't the enemy, people. Moderation and sugar our body can process easily is the key. Honey, maple syrup, sugar in fruit and less processed, not bleached sugar is fine. Pure cane sugar is yummy. Your generic sugar has so much stuff in it. The less processed isn't bad since we need some of it, the better. Story 63. Fruit. Social media diet culture has people believing that strawberries and apples have too much sugar. Story 64. Homemade pizza. Dough, tomatoes, cheese, and a couple other topping is basically one of the most balanced meals you can have. Story 65. Being angry. It's a part of your emotions, and you get people that suppress or avoid it, then have a meltdown because they can't control it and get overwhelmed. Story 66. Anything can be healthy as long as there's not too much of it. I once was told to eat more sugar because I was lacking energy. Story 67. Sugar carbs. Sugar is the primary source of energy. There's nothing wrong with eating carbs if you live a healthy and active lifestyle. The problem is, most people don't burn it off and let it turn into fat. That's unhealthy. If you do any kind of intensive or endurance exercise, you need enough carbs to perform at your highest possible level. Story 68. Allowing yourself to be salty and frustrated from time to time. That shows you that you actually care. Story 69. Eggs. We now know that dietary cholesterol doesn't impact blood level cholesterol, as was previously assumed. An egg is about 90 calories. You could eat 10 eggs a day and still be well under your daily recommended caloric intake. If you have kidney problems, you have to be careful of your protein intake. So eggs, or any other protein-rich food, could be a problem there. But we also now know that eating protein doesn't cause these kidney problems. It just is a problem if you have kidney problems. So you can probably eat all the eggs you want, with the above caveat if you have kidney problems. Story 70. Brussels sprouts and bacon. Obviously, moderation is key with the bacon. Fry the bacon first. You can cook the Brussels sprouts in the fat left over in the cast iron and grind a bit of black pepper over the top. The key is not to overcook the Brussels sprouts. A little crispness is better than mushy. Excellent source of vitamins, fiber, antioxidants, and keeps you full for a while. Story 71. Eating eggs. Eggs are high protein, white, and contain all the nutrients but vitamin C, yolk. Yes, the yolk is high in cholesterol, but that does little to raise your LDL or HDL. Production happens in your liver, naturally. The main causes of bad LDL is lack of exercise and having too much trunk fat. And yes, diet is a factor, but clogged arteries are more due to not enough fiber in a diet and too much fat, especially saturated and trans fat. Story 72. Fats in foods. We need that shoot. There are good fats. Avocado, salmon, nuts, etc. are all good sources. For instance, the myelin sheaths in our brains rely on them, and we will not exist properly or function right without an appropriate amount of fat intake. Zero-fat diets are harmful. I could say similar things about carbs. Story 73. Sleeping more than 5 hours. It's not big or clever, nor are you a better worker or trying harder at your job if you go without sleep so that you can have it all or do it all. It's healthy to sleep enough, and 5 hours sleep a night is not enough for anyone. Pushing yourself to exercise when you absolutely dislike it and don't feel the benefit of it. If it's stressing you out, you're going to raise your cortisol levels to a harmful level, and this results in more harm over time and has its own risks. If you really dislike your exercise routine, find something you do like in order to exercise. Try anything new for at least 2 weeks before deciding if you dislike it enough to stop and look for something else. But putting up with anything you dislike and that causes you prolonged stress or anxiety is more likely to backfire than it is to help you. There are other ways to get your exercise in that don't require almost eliminate yourself and not feeling better for it. Story 74. Rice. Healthiest food in the world, the rice is healthy. The butter, oil, sausage, and bacon, and other calorie-dense crap you put on it is what's bad. Asians in Asia don't eat bacon cheeseburgers and pizza every day. They eat rice and vegetables and fish, and look how lean and sexy they are. Only big cities where KFC and McDonald's has infiltrated will you see an overweight Asian in Asia. Story 75. Not so much actually healthy as not nearly as outrageous as people like to pretend it is, but the KFC double down. Every time they bring it back, people clutch their pearls and declare it something so ridiculous only the Americans could come up with it. But what is it? Chicken, breaded and fried, surrounding ham and cheese. Folks, that's literally chicken cordon bleu. That's all the double down is, a fast food chicken cordon bleu. Story 76. The pain you feel in your muscles after not exercising for a few weeks. Completely healthy. Nothing is wrong with you. Story 77. If you make it at home with simpler techniques, a burger is a fairly healthy and complete meal. A protein, multiple vegetables, a grain, and sometimes a dairy source as well. Get yourself some whole wheat buns, some veggies, lean beef, and maybe some cheddar. That's a whole meal. That's good food. That's some bread, steak, and a salad just stacked on top of each other. Story 78, diet drinks. Everybody wants to make a comment about how it'll give you cancer or how unhealthy they are. Well, meanie, I lost 60 pounds and am living a way happier life now. Fudge your false information. Story 79. Eating fat. Most people eat too much seed oils and other saturated fats, which is bad. But stuff like olive oil, fatty fish, whole milk, nuts is really good for you. Most unsaturated fats are antioxidants, can lower cholesterol, high in essential omega fatty acids. Story 80. Being alone. Obviously, an extended amount of time can be unhealthy, but constantly being around people and not processing things on your own does more harm than good. Story 81. This is very niche, but deadlifting. Some people think that the risk of injury is too high for the reward. It's actually a great leg and back exercise, and very safe if you use good form. That's the trick. A lot of people let the bar hang too far out, putting too much stress on their lower back. You're supposed to keep the bar glued to your shins until you lock out. You can't really overload the exercise. Even, chances are if the bar's too heavy or you're doing too many reps, you won't even be able to get off the ground. Story 82. If you're fairly young and in good health, avoid taking medicine, painkillers, and antibiotics for every minor ailment. Story 83. Not showering every day, being dirty and building an immune system. Carbs, not doing anything at all sometimes. Story 84. Being a little overweight, especially in middle age and above, and specifically for women. Being heavier makes you less frail. It keeps your bones strong. It gives you more energy reserves to weather illness and stress, and it helps produce estrogen post-menopause. Women who are slightly overweight live longer and healthier lives than those who have lower BMIs, provided that you are otherwise healthy, i.e., normal cholesterol and triglycerides, normal blood pressure, normal vitamin D and iron levels, normal thyroid function. It is perfectly healthy to be overweight. Story 85. Salsa and pico de gallo. You can eat buckets of it, and although calorific and a bit salty, high-end corn chips are not that bad at all. Story 86. Carbs. LOL. Literally carbs. I have been around people that refuse to eat any carbs outside of their safe foods, etc. I understand that anything is bad in excess, and a lot of carbs can be processed, etc. Though, if you really want to have one cookie or a little bit of ice cream, then fine. It's fine. Geez. Keto isn't the catch-all diet that is good for everyone. Carbs are not the enemy. Reminds me of the quote from the movie Fall Guy. You need to eat carbs. Your brain needs carbs. Story 87. Cheat meals. Cutting off family who aren't supportive and loving. Ghosting people. Canceling plans because you need a do-nothing day. Switching jobs because you don't like your job and you don't know why. Story 88. Cutting people off. Obviously, don't cut out everyone in your life, but sometimes you just shouldn't be in a certain relationship. Story 89. Not getting much sun or a tan. It's not bad to be pale and stay out of the sun. Actually, it'll keep your skin youthful. Unless you literally live in a place where daylight is objectively non-existent for long periods of time, you will not be deficient of anything. If you do go outside, wear sunscreen and shade yourself. Cumulative sun exposure over time leads to premature signs of aging and increased risk of skin cancers. Story 90. Carbs. I get in this debate all the time with people telling me that all carbs are bad, and almost every single one of them is horribly overweight. It's the kind of carbs you eat. Wheat and sourdough bread, potatoes, rice, and fruit juices are all very healthy for you and should absolutely be in your diet, assuming you don't have some type of allergy to any of it. Bad carbs are things like pasta, fried foods, etc. You know, the obvious things. Especially if you exercise consistently and work a physical job, carbs are absolutely essential. You will be drained of all energy without them. Story 91. Fruits. I don't know what's going on, but I've been getting a lot of heat from my kids' fruit consumption. Fruits are healthy. Story 92. Ice cream, and especially frozen yogurt, isn't that bad for you. It's about the same as eating a cup of yogurt in terms of nutrition. It's the fat in ice cream, the added sugar, and overeating that's not great for you, but nutritionally is kind of good for you. Story 93. Identifying and expressing negative or uncomfortable emotions. Fat and carbs. Making time for rest. Being intentionally unproductive. Failing. Rejection. calling in sick, using all of your vacation time, saying no, not doing what is expected of you if it doesn't align with your actual values, going to college, having children, etc. Solitude. Story 94. Washing your hands needs to be said. I can't tell you how many times in life I had some boomer or Gen X whine and cry when they saw me washing my hands, talking about garden hoses, toxic pond water, and the immune system. Yeah, and you suddenly forgot how immune systems work, what it means to be immunocompromised during COVID, like I committed some kind of sin against them personally. Wash your hands, you disgusting pigs, especially after you use the bathroom. Like WTF. Story 95. Sunlight. Read a study not long ago that said that, simplified, the advantages of exposure to sunlight outweigh the disadvantages in terms of lifespan and health, and you are better off not using high SPF. Obviously, there are limits. Story 96. Talking to yourself. People think it's weird, but it's actually great for processing thoughts, reducing stress, and remembering stuff. I'm my own best therapist. Story 97. The misunderstanding between the varieties of fats is just straight up shocking. No, avocado is not the same as you eating a fried chicken. WTF. Get the healthy fats and omegas in you. Clean them guts. All the fatty veg and nuts are good. Just moderate. Edit. I'm a nerd. Really though, it's 9 calories per gram. This is evolutionary stuff if you think about it. Handfuls of fats and fruits would keep us as gatherers going for a long, long time. Keto is a thing. It's not what I do, but healthy fats contain so much clean fuel. I'm not one for the big fat propaganda, but I've been reading Cosmos since the late 90s and wish the Kovo would change LOL. Story 98. Soy. I know some highly processed soy products can have some issues, but tofu and soy milk are not going to give you breasts. Phytoestrogen is not the same as human estrogen. Tofu is so cheap and healthy. If you're not intolerant, you should have some. Story 99. Potatoes. If you don't deep fry them, they are healthy, complex carbohydrates. Everyone says they are empty calories, which is not true. Story 100. Fat in foods. Fat does not make you fat. Overeating does. Fat is actually needed by your body to do different functions, such as build neuron pathways in your brain. Story 101. That eating carbs, like rice, pasta, potatoes, are unhealthy. My brother in Christ, these are staple crops that have sustained populations since the beginning of human civilization and agriculture. Story 102. A caloric deficit. On the surface, it may just seem like staring yourself, but done right can be an effective way to lose weight. Story 103. At least 20 mins of direct sunlight sitting in the sun a day. Getting real vitamin D recharges me and genuinely does something great for my mood. I understand the risks of skin cancer, etc., but what isn't a risk of cancer these days? Story 104. You can eat almost anything you want, any sweets, carbs, fats, etc., just as long as you consume a variety of foods. Humans are omnivores and designed to eat a wide range of food. It's eating the same oily, fatty, sugary foods repeatedly without mixing in greens and meats that will cause health issues and obesity. Having a variety is extremely healthy and much better than typical healthy diets. Story 105. Gaming. In moderation. It's been proven to enhance or keep your reflexes sharp. It can be great for mental relaxation, and it can also be great for exercising your mind depending on the type of game. If you have buddies to play with, it's also a great way to socialize and stay in touch. Without gaming, I doubt my friends and I would have stayed in touch as much as we all moved away after college. 10 years later, and we play a couple times a week and talk frequently. Story 106. Carbonated water. It's really healthy if you mix lemons and salt and stuff. Unhealthy when you drink it as Coke or whatever sugary BS. Story 107. Balance. Not being healthy all the time. Adult beverage and sugar isn't great, sure, but if you have a great time with friends and take a drink or two, I think it's better for your overall health than just blatantly never drinking or joining in such activities. Limit adult beverage and such, of course, but as long as your overall lifestyle is good, it doesn't matter if you have a drink here and there. Story 108. Dietitian here. Seed oils. They are actually healthy for us. They are a polyunsaturated fats, which is one of the good fats. They are not poison nor inflammatory. The internet has it 100 wrong, and I don't know why this myth became so widespread when there is a substantial amount of studies that show health benefits. Story 109. Fats. Fats are an essential part of our diets, but they are villainized to the extreme. Just because people tend to consume excess fat doesn't mean fat is inherently bad. Story 110. Cheese. I'm vegan, so I don't eat it, but societies that eat lots of cheese have much lower incidence of heart disease than predicted. Story 111. Yelling on top of your lungs. Just beware of people pooping in the bushes if you plan to do it in the woods. They are easily startled. Story 112. Many of the nutrients in vegetables are fat-soluble, so if you add a little bit of butter, oil, dressing, whatever, you actually get more vitamins and stuff. Autistic people stimming. Thankfully, there's more support for us than there was even when I was younger. But holy crap, that is communication, that is expression, that is regulation. And so long as the stim itself isn't dangerous, for example, tooth grinding, which is something I resorted to after many of my other stims were punished for, you should actually just let the person do the stim. Perhaps even try to understand them. Some autistic people flap when they're happy, but for me, flapping is a stress response. Figure eights with my hips is just a habit stim for me, like a real-life idle animation. YMMV. When I'm happy, I tend to jump and clap. These are just a few translations for my stims. Everyone is different. Playing video games. Obviously, how healthy it is and what health benefits you may get depends on factors like what games you're playing, how long each session is, what type of device you're playing on, personal factors like age and existing conditions, etc. All video games involve using your brain and your fingers' hands, and all of them are able to be a hobby. Hobbies in general improve health, and there are benefits that can be proven in areas such as fine motor skills and cognitive performance. If you play games on the Wii or the Xbox Kinect, you will be moving your whole body, and thus you will be getting exercise and can improve your gross motor skills. Games that have built-in subtitles or that require you to read can help little kids learn to read and can help older kids and adults who already know how to read keep their reading sharp. Some games are designed to improve mental health and intelligence and cognition. Games that require actions with both hands can help strengthen your corpus callosum, which is the part of your brain right in the middle that connects the two sides. Some games encourage creativity. Some games have important messages that carry over to real life. Games that are played cooperatively increase social skills. Many games can improve memory, problem-solving skills, pattern recognition, focus, and other skills. Story 113. Most video games, just like food or booze, it can be a healthy part of your life if you use it that way. Story 114. Procrastination. Some of my best work happened because I was reading or working on unrelated projects. Interdisciplinary insights create unconventional solutions. Story 115. Diet Coke and artificial sweeteners. At worst, it's neutral or a negative habit, but it's mostly harmless, especially as a substitute for the sugar version. And about cancer, it's placed in a safer category than eating meat or working as a hairdresser, according to the WHO. And if you're trying to lose weight, it can be extremely healthy. Being above 30 body fat percentage is orders of magnitude more dangerous than any slight chance of artificial sweeteners being somehow bad for you. And people have tried to find ways, but there's really not convincing evidence. All studies I've read are either poorly designed, inconclusive, or taken out of context by the media because people have preconceived ideas about what is junk and healthy, and they simply cannot accept that you can possibly enjoy a sweet drink or treat without it being bad for you. Plus, there's even stevia and monk fruit for people worried about chemicals bad. Story 116. Leaving a job that treats you badly, immediately. Normally, I'd say I wouldn't leave a job until I have another one lined up. But when job consumes all your energy or gives you little pieces to make you think it's okay, when actually they're walking all over you and will never respect you, then yes, get out. I haven't quite mastered this yet. I've seen red flags but been paralyzed by the safety, fear, or just exhaustion. Hasn't stopped me from snapping and leaving when I've finally had enough. I haven't regretted leaving, have found jobs pretty soon after, and have gotten to learn what I'm willing to put up with each time. I'm privileged to not have kids relying on me to keep a job, but even when my mom had me in a recession, she did the same thing. Don't put up with disrespect for convenience. As a PSA, I'm good at what I do, but it's low paid. I've left jobs and found another, better one 2 days later. My record this time is 4 days. You can do it if you put your mind to it. Story 117. Stating your boundaries with parents, friends, colleagues, and strangers without being scared of them hating you. If someone becomes mad at you for stating your needs, then that's someone who needs to work on their own issues. I've had that a lot with my family, friends, and work colleagues because I'm scared of looking like a meanie, but in the end, it takes a massive weight off your shoulders and also eliminates toxic people from your life. Story 118. Honestly, eggs. People were scared of them for years because of cholesterol, but they're actually super nutritious and totally fine for most people. Same with coffee, as long as you're not downing 6 venti lattes a day. It can actually be really good for you. Story 119. Taking time alone. People confuse solitude with isolation, but sometimes it's exactly what your mind needs. Story 120. Eating eggs. People still act like you're mainlining cholesterol with every bite, but newer research shows they're packed with protein, healthy fats, and vital nutrients like choline. Unless you're downing a dozen a day with bacon and hash browns, eggs are actually a solid health food. Story 121. Eating rice. I ate a diet of all my meals involving rice, meat, and green veg, and I lost weight. Never had that happen with just meat and veg. I'm not sure why it works, but adding 1 cup of rice made a huge impact. Story 122. Hormone replacement therapy. Getting the correct hormones in your brain has a measurable improvement on brain function, mood, and general outlook on life. Story 123. Drinking straight olive oil. The high concentration of monounsaturated fats will prevent heart attacks. Story 124. Lard isn't just fat, it's culinary sorcery, the nectar of the hog gods, the reason your nan's roasties could end wars. People are out here slandering lard while slapping margarine on toast like it's not 1 molecule away from plastic. Meanwhile, lard is natural and delicious and has been making food taste like victory for centuries. Want health? Lard. Want flavor? Lard. Want to unlock ancient greasy knowledge and ascend to crispy enlightenment? Lard. Praise be to pig. Story 125. Eggs. They were demonized for cholesterol for years, but now we know they're nutrient-dense and perfectly fine in moderation. Story 126. Whole foods like eggs, potatoes, butter, and real bread. People freak out over carbs or fat, but ignore that the real danger is the garbage the U.S. lets into processed foodstuff, banned in most other countries. Here's what's hiding in U.S. food that's banned elsewhere. Red 3, red 40, yellow 5-6, blue 1-2. Linked to hyperactivity, allergies, and cancer risks. Banned or restricted in Europe. Brominated vegetable oil, BVO. Banned in Europe, Japan. Causes thyroid and nerve issues. Potassium bromate, carcinogen. Banned in Europe, Canada, China. Still in U.S. bread. Azodicarbonamide, ADA, yoga mat chemical. Banned in Europe, Australia. Propylparaben, hormone disruptor. Banned in the EU. RBGH, RBST, growth hormones in U.S. dairy. Banned in the EU, Canada, Japan. BHA, BHT, TBHQ. Preservatives. Banned. Restricted elsewhere for cancer and immune risks. The problem was never real food. It's the ultra-processed, chemical-laden garbage that somehow passes for food in the U.S. Answer. These issues are still much less of a problem than the fact that U.S. food supply and diet is too heavy in red meats and extremely lacking in vegetables and the like. Maha has us fighting about food dyes and seed oils, rather than focusing on how most Americans are still eating food that has too much sugar, is drowned in too much oil, any oil, and is chock full of salt. Companies are incentivized to fill us full of hyper-palatable, nutrient-deficient foods that don't satisfy us, so that way we buy more and more. They want us fighting over HFCS versus sugar and soda so that we don't focus on how we are drinking too much soda regardless. Ditto with avocado oil versus seed oils, Himalayan salt versus Morton salt, and even artificial versus natural dyes. Focusing on ingredient swaps instead of a more holistic transformation of our food industries just distracts us and keeps the moneyed interests in power. They don't care if we make a small ingredient swap. They do care if everyone decides to drink less Coca-Cola. Story 127. Most is a tough word to use in these situations. Rarely do people have actual stats on these. A good substitute is many. Story 128. Staying inside when it's summer. Less risk of skin cancer and sunburn, which is a form of radiation poisoning. Story 129. Invalidating someone's identity on occasion. The entire reason people like Nazis and flat earthers have such trouble letting go of their beliefs is precisely because they've built their entire identities around them. Your identity is not automatically valid. It still has to adhere to reality. I know that building your identity around being an anarchist makes you feel like a rebel, Jenny, but every historic attempt at anarchy gradually becomes less and less anarchistic over time, or else it becomes Somalia. Story 130. Fruit juice. I kept seeing people online talking about how bad it was. I asked my doctor, and she said, so long as you're not drinking that refined sugar added juice, like Kool-Aid or Hawaiian Punch, but actual fruit juice, you're fine. She said a glass of orange juice at breakfast is healthy and a great source of vitamin C and B12. I think she said B12. She also said not to drink liters of it a day, but actual fruit juice is healthy in moderation. Story 131. Jorking it. In all seriousness, it relieves stress and anxiety and has plenty of other health effects. You won't go blind or grow hair on your palms either. Story 132. Whole milk. The vitamin content is far superior to 2 or skim. When knuckleheads promote raw milk because the flavor is so much better, I'm always curious if these folks have ever tried whole milk, you know? Story 133. Diet sodas. If we look big picture, artificial sweeteners do have an associated increased risk of all-cause mortality. But compared to being fat, obesity is astronomically more risky. While diet soda doesn't help everyone lose weight, if it works for you, it's actually the healthier choice. Like a lot of health issues, people will stop eating red meat or carbs or whatever to get 0.5 benefit, but continue with their 50 risk behavior guilt-free. These types of things need to be quantitatively evaluated. Story 134. Iceberg lettuce. While not as nutrient-rich as dark, leafy greens, it actually has a fairly significant amount of vitamin A and K, and it's mostly water and fiber, which just about everyone could get more of, and with basically 0 calories. Story 135. Not sure if there's merit to this, but not washing your body with soap helps keep your skin's microbiome healthy and strong. Story 136. Judging by drivers' conduct in the grocery store parking lot, walking more than 20 feet to get to the store. Story 137. Dieting. There are absolutely unhealthy ways to do this, but being conscious of the food you eat, how it makes you feel, and how it changes your body is healthy. A lot of prepared food has been engineered to subvert your human instincts about food and eating. Counting calories is a good way to keep track of what you are eating. It has to be done with care to avoid disordered eating. But being unable to restrict yourself from eating anything at any time is also disorder eating. Story 138. Expressing your emotions. Anger, sadness, remorse, etc. These are things we have to deal with, and letting them out in a controlled environment can be very beneficial. Story 139. Fat and carbs. Our bodies need them. The key is moderation, of course, but there's too many people who publicly demonize fat and carbs in general, or encourage restricting them entirely. Story 140. Fat. Obviously, trans fat and whatnot are exempt, but you need fat for proper function. Polyunsaturated fats and monounsaturated fats are the best, both lowering the risk of heart disease. Story 141. Moderate anal stimulation. Keep the sphincter muscle able to relax, dramatically reduce constipation, and for male subjects, prostate stimulation reduces prostate inflammation and cancer probability. Story 142. Coffee. The protective effects in the liver are wild and should be medicine. Also, processed tomato products, even ketchup. You get more lycopene from these than tomatoes. Fapping also reduces the risk of testicular cancer. Story 143. Midday nap. It is beneficial for your body and mind if you have time for a short midday nap. Contrary to popular belief, it doesn't make you gain weight or reduces your productivity. Story 144. Deep squatting and other strenuous knee exercises. People assume they weaken your knees as you get older, but coupled with correct recovery, it is the best way to continue your knees' longevity. Story 145. One of my quick and light meals I make sometimes is literally just roasted russet potato slices. Only a little olive oil and some seasons, and then eat it with some other veggies. It's great. Still worthwhile vitamins in potatoes. Story 146. Crying really loudly in the shower. I've been bottling it up, and it felt good to truly let it out. Story 147. Me time. It's not selfish at all. You can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself first. Story 148. Diet soda. Aspartame has probably been one of the most over-sensationalized sweeteners on the market. Story 149. Being bored. Our schedules are so jam-packed that we don't know what to do with any downtime. We fill it with mindless social media and video games. I do it so much, it's embarrassing. Heaven forbid I spend 5 minutes in my own head. Story 150. Potatoes. They're so good for you, yet it used to be popular to cut them out when dieting. TBH carbs in general. Story 151. Being exposed to dirt and germs as kids. Being overly clean and sanitary in our early lives likely contributes to allergies, autoimmune disorders, and long-term weakened immunity. It's pretty well studied. Let your kids be gross little gremlins for their own health. Story 152. Salt. Overweight. American. Male boomers get too much salt, and since they control global media health messaging has focused on telling everyone in the entire world to cut back of salt. If you are a thin woman who menstruates, and you get dizzy when you stand up to fast or for too long, you probably need to eat more salt. Story 153. Going drinking with friends as an adult. Moderate drinking helps bring down some of the social barriers that adult life imposes and provide a shortcut to slightly deeper social interactions and a feeling of belonging. Source: dad with 3 kids who is rarely able to go out and just hang out with mates. Story 154. Talking to yourself. It's actually a way many people use to be introspective. Rather than contemplating things silently, they talk to themselves. It can also help you organize your own thoughts and ideas, or even know what you want to say to someone else. Story 155. Potatoes. They have tons of micronutrients and fiber and are a great source of fat-free calories. I think they get a bad rap due to their association with deep fryers. Story 156. Feeling a sense of shame. I know that feeling it all the time is damaging, and feeling it too much is probably not a good thing. But I just mean that I think there's a healthy amount. I have come to think of shame as self-awareness. If I am feeling it, then it's probably telling me something, and I need to examine it before I dismiss it as an unhelpful feeling. I was in therapy for years, and my therapist would always tell me that shame has no place here. I understood what he meant, but it did seem like any time I felt it, he wanted to exercise and get rid of it. I'm sure not all therapists think this way, of course, but I sometimes find it weird how it's talked about without nuance and as if there is no use for it. Story 157. Ideally, don't drink, but I feel like someone who goes out one night a week with friends and drinks is probably healthier than someone who has no social connections and doesn't drink. Story 158. Very low body fat, like around 5 to 10 for men. Most of the time it is unhealthy because of malnourishment. However, if you properly plan your diet, there is no evidence that it is unhealthy, at least physically. Anorexia is a serious disorder. Story 159. While not healthy per se, Taco Bell is considered one of the healthiest fast foods. I think it was because it used a lot of soy filler. Story 160. Self-care. Frequent orgasms are essential to reproductive health in both men and women. Too many people think that jacking it is a shameful act that turns you into a intimacy-addicted degenerate, but it really isn't unless you think it is. Adult content, however, is a different story. But God gave man an imagination for a reason. Story 161. Exercising every day. A lot of people believe that we need days where we do nothing, but it's actually nonsense. We are designed to be physically active on a daily basis. Just listen to your body and remember about moderation. Mix high impact with low impact and some core strengthening. But definitely don't believe in doing nothing all day as a recovery. Story 162. Not eating for longer periods of time. I really feel like the body gets lazier over time if you just consistently keep feeding it more than enough all the time. Even worse if you don't really do any exercise that doesn't get your blood pumping. Our ancestors sometimes went days without food. Obviously, there are healthy limits, but it remains the same idea. Story 163. Cheeseburgers. The saturated fat lie demonized red meat. A cheeseburger can actually be a very healthy meal. I mean, go light on the bread and skip the corn syrup salsa called ketchup. Other than that, it is basically perfect. Story 164. Fasting. Intermittent fasting. 1 meal a day, 36 to 72 jour fasts. People always think, I am starving myself, but you literally cannot starve when you have fat reserves. The health and healing benefits are unmatched, IMO. Story 165. Having biases. Not all bias is bad, and there is no such thing as being truly non-biased. If your bias is towards that which can be proven with logic, reason, and evidence, you have a very healthy bias. Story 166. Eating red meat in moderation, especially from grass-fed sources. People freak out over red meat, but if it's high quality and not ultra-processed, it's packed with protein, iron, B12, and healthy fats. The problem is usually what it's eaten with, like sugary sauces and fries, not the meat itself. Story 167. Oxidane, also known as hydric acid. I can tell you it has many industrial applications. It can cause corrosion, denature proteins, and alter neurotransmitters. It is found in the tumors of cancer patients and remains in food even after washing. It is found in ultra-processed foods. The reason people might think it isn't healthy is because of a lack of science literacy, confusing terminology, and phobia to dangerous-sounding chemicals. Oxidane is another term for water, which is good for you, but not in excess. Story 168. Fat. If it's just a natural part of a food, egg and dairy, eggs, meat, etc., and you're not eating too many overall calories, it's likely to do more good than harm. Story 169. Carbs. They're the easiest form of fuel for the body, and calories are king. Don't believe the food group myths. Always has been about balance. Story 170. Feeling your darn feelings. Yeah, the hurt might really hurt. The heartbreak might be intense, but it is not going to physically eliminate you. Does it suck? Abso-fucking-lutely. But you will get through it, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. You know what's unhealthy? Numbing the pain with too much adult beverage or narcotics. All that's doing is pressing the pause button on your feelings while also destroying your organs. You're ultimately still going to have to feel the feelings to get through them. Story 171. Sleeping less than 8 hours. I can get at most 6 hours every night, and then I wake up and can't go back to sleep. Every doctor I've ever visited has told me that's perfectly fine, and everyone is different, but random people tell me I need all 8 hours of sleep. Story 172. Artificial sweeteners. Maybe not healthy, but neutral. Nowhere near as bad as some say. The studies are based on giving rats excessive amounts of it, the equivalent of a human drinking 19 cans of diet soda a day, and that came out to a very slightly higher risk of cancer. Story 173. Sugar. Of course in moderation. Basically, the entire brain runs on sugar, and you can seriously mess your body up if you don't consume enough sugar. Story 174. Letting yourself panic when you can afford to. That adrenaline can be useful sometimes. Panic got me through 2 miles uphill at 12 a.m. in the pouring rain in the middle of November. Story 175. We're over-hygienic to the point of being unhealthy, especially with kids. Kids need to be exposed to certain bacteria to enable them build up a healthy resistance. Reduced exposure to germs, particularly in childhood, can lead to increased allergies and autoimmune diseases later in life, as the immune system doesn't get the necessary training from early exposure to diverse microbes. Story 176. Nicotine. Not smoking or vaping it, and not nicotine mixed with a ton of other chemicals. There are so many studies on this IDK, why it isn't talked about more. Story 177. From reading the comments here, pretty much anything as long as it's in moderation. Life is a system of balances. Story 178. Pasta. There's a myth that it's fattening. The pasta itself, typically made from durum wheat, is fine. With a healthy sauce, it can be part of a good, nutritious meal. Story 179. Salad dressing can actually help you absorb some of the vitamins and nutrients in vegetables, since they are fat-soluble. Story 180. Caloric intake restriction for adults. Kids need the extra calories for massive growth. As long as you eat when you're hungry, not bulimic or anorexic, your body functions much better, and you stay healthy for much longer with caloric intake restriction. Story 181. Eggs. They are one of the healthiest things you can eat. Despite people worried about cholesterol, eating it does not cause it to rise in any significant manner. Eat your eggs. Story 182. Anyone who ever told the men replying in here that empathy, crying, or FFS, literal emotions, were unhealthy, need to cut those people out of their life for good. Story 183. Also, not showering every day. IDK, man. I just think skin isn't supposed to be exposed to soap and water every day, especially seen in people prone to dry skin. Always using a bidet after using the toilet, and in hot weather, washing armpits every day is enough IMO. For actual showers, depending on the weather activity level, once every other day to twice a week even is enough, if I'm being completely honest.